For example, you might see a tennis player take a deep breath before they serve. This is to allow them to feel more relaxed and also to give them a moment to pause and focus on where they're going to serve. So as well as deep breathing, positive self-talk is another common technique to help manage anxiety. It is a cognitive technique whereby the performer either talks to themselves in their head or out loud quietly. This technique helps to reassure a performer that they can do it or that they are well prepared. It helps put their mind at ease and block out all the worry and doubt in the mind, helping to relax the performer. Some sporting examples are a sprinter sitting in the locker room before a big race, telling themselves that they are good enough to win and they've done all the right training to be in the best possible position to win. Similarly, it could be a golfer reassuring him or herself that she can hole a putt, or finally a netball player quietly encouraging themselves, for example saying something like, "You can do this." Positive self-talk can be used before or during an event as a way of managing anxiety. A variation of managing anxiety is biofeedback. So this can't be used during a sporting performance, but is a really effective way of improving the way you can manage anxiety. With training, you can learn to relax and gain control over your body's responses to stress. Biofeedback training involves several sessions with a specially trained psychologist. Special monitors are used to provide precise, immediate information about muscle tension, heart rate, and other vital signs as a person attempts to relax. So biofeedback helps you learn the skills necessary to learn to relax and reduce anxiety and also stress during a sporting performance. So now I'm going to go on to talk about stress in sport. So stress is a pattern of negative physiological and psychological responses occurring in situations where people perceive threats to their well-being. So people might be more prone to feeling stressed in multiple situations, whereas some individuals might experience stress in specific situations. So two forms of stress are used in sport as a way of explaining stress, so these being eustress and distress. So eustress is a good form of stress that is used to intrinsically motivate performers and also to give them a sense of fulfillment. So some athletes like to push themselves to the limit in situations that might be really challenging for them, but they use this stress to form the challenge to motivate them and to increase their arousal. So a good example of eustress that led to sporting success is when Korea played and beat Germany in the FIFA World Cup. So instead of letting the scenario of playing Germany in one of the biggest football tournaments in the world affect them negatively, they rose to the challenge and used it as a motivation to go out and try their best because they had no pressure on them. The other type of stress is distress. So distress is a negative form of stress that can cause nervousness, apprehension, fear, and as a result a decrease in performance levels due to perceiving the challenge ahead to be too much. So a perfect example of when a performer will experience distress, it could be a rugby player sitting in the changing room before the World Cup final. So the big occasion, the amount of pressure on them could become too much for them, and that results in them feeling extremely nervous and feel high levels of fear before going out to play in this final, and this could obviously affect their performance in a negative way. So what actually is it that can cause stress on performers and also non-athletes? So firstly, it is said that there are internal and external factors that can cause stress. So one example of internal stress is when the performer is being overly self-critical of themselves. So in this instance, the stress will arise from the performer being overly judgmental about their own ability. So setting really high standards of themselves and then not reaching them can cause stress because they don't feel like they are reaching the level they should be at. This then creates questions in the mind of a performer, and any minor error will cause them to be really tough on themselves. Additionally, cognitive anxiety, which is the psychological form of worry and fear, can cause performers to feel stress. There's no technical explanation to why this is, but very simply, if you experience cognitive anxiety, this can lead to feelings of stress due to that worry and fear that is building up in your head. A final example of internal stress is from a lack of sleep. So having a good night's sleep is obviously crucial to ensuring that you feel energized and ready for the day that's coming up. If you don't have a lot of sleep, you can wake up feeling really tired and fatigued, and your general energy levels can be at a low, therefore potentially making you feel really stressed during the day. And secondly, there's external forms of stress, so from around you. So it could be your environment around you, so it could be too noisy or potentially too quiet. Some people find being in a noisy environment with lots of people really stressful for them. It could also be some negative interactions. For example, somebody being really rude to you. This could be, it doesn't have to just be in sport. It could be someone at work or someone from school. And finally, it could also be a major life event. So, for example, it could be a really a sad death in the family, or an example like that, which can obviously lead to not only stress but extreme upset. And also, there are some other causes of stress: are personal, occupational, and also sports environment. So, personal causes of stress come from people who are significant in our lives, so such as friends, family, and partners. Lifestyle factors like health and finance can also be a source of stress. So it could be a family argument or falling out with your friends, or a girlfriend or boyfriend can cause you to feel stressed. So secondly, we have occupational. So occupational causes of stress are related to job and the workplace. So it could be a lack of enjoyment at work or potential unemployment. A sporting situation, having a disagreement with a coach or a manager, or being dropped from the team could cause you to suffer from stress. So obviously, if you're dropped from the A team, this can cause you to feel really stressed because you don't feel like you're good enough, and this can obviously lead to internal stress, like cognitive anxiety or being overly self-critical. And finally, then we got the sporting environment. So there are two key aspects of sports performance that can cause stress: the importance of the event and the amount of uncertainty that surrounds it. So obviously, sporting environment, if you're playing in a really, really important competition, you got all the build up and hype around you over this competition. So it could be the manager constantly letting you know about it being a final and you've got to perform. That can build up a lot of stress and worry in you because you feel like you need to perform at this high level. And also it could be teammates around you, which can build up the stress due to the importance of the environment. So some factors affecting stress during sporting performance. So professional athletes can often feel stress during performance, and on the screen are a few of the factors that can cause them to feel this way. So the first factor is competition. The specific competition that a performer is participating in could bring different levels of stress. Also, the importance of the competition could also add stress. So, for example, a tennis player is most likely to feel high levels of stress before or during the Wimbledon final compared to an ATP 500 first round match. So due to the importance and severity of the Wimbledon final, it will naturally bring a greater feeling of stress on a player because of how badly they'd obviously want to win. This is also the same for all sporting competitions, not just for tennis. So secondly, conflict in sport can bring stress onto a performer. So any kind of conflict, whether it's with your own teammate, an official, your own or the opposing manager, or someone on the opposition, can cause frustration and stress on a performer. Whatever the incident, it will cause stress levels to rise, and also for the performer to possibly become overly aroused, leading to them to lose focus and make rash in-game decisions. Additionally, general frustration is a huge factor that causes stress on performers during sporting performance. This frustration could be caused from the smallest of things, but it can cause a performer's stress levels to change really easily. It could be as simple as a footballer misplacing a pass, which gives away the ball to the opposition. So this frustration of giving the ball away will make you feel annoyed at yourself, and additionally there may also be a negative reaction from the crowd, consequently causing stress levels to rise within you. The best players in the world won't let a small little mistake like this get to them, and they will be really good at being able to control their stress levels and just to be able to get on with the game as normal, to try and go and win the ball back. Moreover, the climate is also a factor contributing towards stress during sporting performance. So performing in hot conditions can cause stress to rise the most due to body temperature being way too high, which can have a really negative effect on the level that you can perform, due to it causing easy fatigue on the body. As well as this, not being able to play at the level you believe you should due to the heat will cause frustration at yourself, and therefore stress to rise because of this frustration. Finally, fatigue and injury can also make you feel stressed. Similar to what I've just said, being fatigued will lead to the performance levels to drop significantly due to obviously the muscles being extremely tired, and not being able to perform at that level you know you can due to feeling fatigued is really frustrating for an athlete, and it could cause stress to rise within them. For example, they might feel like if a footballer, defender's feeling really tired and they're not able to track back, they might be annoyed at themselves for not putting in the work off the court to be at their right level of fitness. So additionally, injury is the worst thing for an athlete to receive during sporting performance, especially when in the heat of competition. Picking up any injury will not only put a performer in significant discomfort, but it might mean they have to stop playing. This can obviously be devastating for professional athletes, and it can cause them to feel really stressed and aggravated, especially if they try to play on, but they are in constant discomfort and they are not able to play at the high level. So for example, you can see a tennis player picking up an injury, they get the physio on court, they try and play through, but you can just see the stress and frustration building up on them because they're not able to play at the level they were when the injury wasn't there. So they should probably pull out, but they try and try and carry on, but you can see the stress and frustration building up on their face from the reactions of losing points, or constantly feeling where the injury is, or looking up at their box, things like that. So also, just quickly mentioning ways to prevent stress. So they're exactly the same as anxiety. So it can be things like positive self-talk, looking at their strengths, what they're good at. So if we go into a bit more detail, if a football player is feeling really stressed out, they can look and reflect on what they're good at. So when they try and get the ball, let's say they're really good at getting their head up and spreading the ball out to the wing, but they struggle and really at passing in confined spaces. When they get the ball, they can reassure themselves that they're good at getting their head up and trying to find one of their wingers. So when they receive the ball, they can kind of reassure themselves, get their head up, look out to the wing, and send the ball out to a winger. Obviously, deep, heavy breathing as well. For example, you see Ronaldo before taking a free kick. He often takes a really, really deep breath before striking the ball, as a way of kind of zoning in his concentration, ignoring the noise of the crowd, any other players maybe trying to put him off, but just focusing on that wall and the goal to try and increase the chance of him scoring. So when we become stressed, there are multiple different